You have a quorum, sir?
Are you ready to get started there?
Yes, sir.
All right, then with that, I would like to call to order the regular board meeting of the North County Transit District for September 16th, 2021. Welcome back, everyone. I would like to ask Anthony Flores, the clerk of the board, to call roll, please.
Thank you, sir. Board Member Sanchez,
Present.
Board Chair Krantz,
Here.
Board Member Contreras,
Present.
Board Member McNamara, Board Member Desmond,
Here.
Board Member Gasterland,
Here.
Board Vice Chair Edson, Board Member Jenkins,
Here.
Board Member Bapatal,
Here.
Board Member Von Wilpert. And looks like Board Member McNamara just joined, and Board Vice Chair Edson.
Okay, great. Thank you. I would appreciate if you all could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Now, the clerk will provide a safety briefing and review evacuation procedures.
Yes, sir. For those here in the building, in the event of emergency, I'll dial 911. In the event of an evacuation, please exit the building using the stairs. Do not use the elevator. Once cleared of the building, please do not re-enter unless told to do so by emergency personnel. We have fire alarms and fire extinguishers on each floor of this building. We also have a portable defibrillator located on the first floor and staff on hand trained on CPR procedures. That concludes my safety brief, sir.
Thank you, Anthony. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There is a change to agenda item 22. The staff agenda item 22, authorize the executive director to finalize and execute agreements with Uber Technologies, Inc. and Lyft, Inc. for micro transit pilot programs. The staff recommendation was revised to clarify the funding for the 12 months of the pilot program is not to exceed $1 million for each agreement for a total not to exceed amount of $2 million for the 12-month pilot program.
Okay, thank you. And do we have any public comments today?
We have 3, sir. Those were written comments and sent to the board and also posted on the website for public inspection.
Okay, thanks. So as we move into the regular meeting here, please use your hand raising feature on Zoom if you would like to speak to a particular item, and we'll go as many rounds as necessary in order to exhaust all of the comments that one might have. And I see Board Member Contreras' hand up. Would you like to say something now?
I just wanted to pull an item from the consent calendar.
Okay.
Item number 2.
Which item?
Item number 2, please.
Okay, so item number 2, we will hear at the end of the regular, the action or the informational section, other business section of the agenda. And Board Member, Vice Chair Edson?
Yes, sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. Yes, you can. I would like to pull item number 6.
Okay, very good. Then we'll hear that one after item number 2 at the end of the other business items.
Thank you.
And with that, I would ask for the remaining items if there is a motion to approve the remaining consent calendar items.
McNamara so moves.
Second by Ed.
There we go.
Okay, so to clarify the motion, sir, we're looking for a combined motion to approve the minutes of July 22nd, 2021 and the rest of the consent items.
Is that your motion, Mayor McNamara?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you please repeat who seconded the motion?
That was Mayor Gasterland.
Actually, it was Joel, Board Member Edson,
Okay, Board Member.
Thank you very much.
Vice Chair Edson.
Okay. On the motion of Board Member Paul McNamara, seconded by Board Vice Chair Joel Edson to approve the regular board meeting minutes held on July 22nd, 2021, and consent items 1, 3 through 5, and 7 through 19. Board Member Bapatal, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Gastelum?
Aye.
Board Chair Krantz?
Aye.
Board Member McNamara?
Aye.
Board Member Sanchez?
Sanchez, aye.
Board Member Desmond?
Aye.
Board Member Jenkins?
Aye.
Board Vice Chair Edson?
Aye.
Board Member Contreras?
Aye.
Motion passes with all board members present voting yes. Okay, thank you. So that takes us, we jump to the other business items 20 through 23, and there are 3 of them. Karen Tukolsky, the Chief Operations Officer of Support Services, will review item number 20, which is focused on providing the Executive Director the authority to establish long-term parking programs. And as a reminder, the action today is to set a public hearing, not to approve the proposed changes. And with that, Karen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Krantz. Good afternoon, board members. Hope everyone can hear me okay. So starting out with just a little bit of background, NCTD enabling legislation does authorize the Board of Directors to adopt ordinances and make any rules and regulations regarding the use, operation, and maintenance of NCTD properties and facilities. Ordinance number 5 was specifically enacted to promote the use and management of parking lots for transit customers. So with a couple of small exceptions noted here, you do see that we currently have parking lots and free parking available at virtually all our Sprinter and Coaster stations managed by NCTD. Of course, we do have the 2 down south that are MTS stations. Under the current ordinance, long-term parking is currently prohibited at NCTD parking lots without a permit. The permits are currently limited to 7-day maximum time periods and may only be issued for a maximum of 4 times for the same vehicle and or applicant within a 365-day period. So as such, these current regulations do not adequately meet the needs of many of our transit patrons. Examples would be customers who travel frequently out of town and want to take transit to get to the San Diego airport instead of utilizing, long-term parking downtown. Or other example would be customers who travel to, to work via our transit services and want to leave a vehicle at our stations overnight for helping them make their first and last mile connections from the transit station to their place of employment. So this particular change that we're proposing is designed to help make improvements and help us meet the needs of our transit customers better. So the proposed changes for the ordinance would be to remove the existing limitations on the number of days associated with the long-term parking permits. Again, that's currently 7 days. We would also recommend removing the existing limitations on the maximum number of long-term parking permits that may be issued. And again, that's currently 4 over 365-day period. And we would lastly authorize the executive director to develop and implement programs for long-term parking that would be in accordance with the remainder of the overall ordinance provisions regarding the use of our parking lots. So with that, this is the staff recommendation, which I'm not going to read, but it relates to, of course, setting the hearing and authorizing staff to move forward with public notification and gathering public comment. And that concludes my presentation. I would be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Edson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Karen. I have a question regarding enforcement of the rules at our parking lots. Can you explain a little bit about how that works?
Sure, no problem. So currently our control center technicians who are staffed in our monitoring center at Oceanside Transit Center conduct virtual patrols of the parking lots. They actually are responsible for conducting virtual patrols and virtual camera monitoring for the entire system, which includes many other areas of the transit centers, as well as many areas along the right of way. So their role involves looking for any general safety and security issues or anything else that may be of a concern. Patrolling the parking lots is one component of their duties. So via the CCTV system, they're able to monitor the parking lots. They will look for vehicles that they recognize as being not in compliance with the ordinance. For example, RVs, cars with trailers that are taking up multiple spots, those types of things are not permitted under our ordinance at all in the parking lots, or vehicles that are left there for, days on end unattended, those types of things. So upon identifying any of those instances, they will track and monitor to see if the vehicle gets removed fairly promptly, or if it continues to stay there. Then we will have a process whereby our security manager will go out and what we call tag the vehicle, provide a notice to them indicating that they are in violation of the ordinance and need to remove their vehicle. And if the vehicle is not removed, we would then work with one of our authorized towing companies to go ahead and have the vehicle towed if necessary.
Thank you for that detailed explanation.
Thank you. Board Member Contreras.
Thank you so much for just reviewing this item. But I do have two questions where I see two issues. One of them is in section 3.11 regarding motorcycles and motorized motor-powered bicycles. It indicates that a motorcycle shall not be parked unless there is an actual space dedicated for a motorcycle. So I want to get some clarification, because I want to ensure that if we are going to be moving forward with this type of language, that we do review repercussions. If one of our customers is in fact on a motorcycle and has it parked in a regular car spot versus a motorcycle spot, what's the situation there? Because if we at all of our parking lots have the ability for a motorcycle to park in a designated spot, then I don't see an issue with that. But if that's not the case, then this could potentially be an issue for that customer.
Yes, thank you. So we do not currently have motorcycle parking designated at all of the transit centers, but our facilities team and development services team are going to be going out and checking all the parking lots and making sure that we can go ahead and get spaces dedicated. It's not a huge lift for us to go ahead and redesignate some of the existing car spots for motorcycle parking to make sure that we are providing those properly designated spots for all of our transit customers.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, in order for us to be able to enforce it, we want to make sure that we're also allowing opportunity for people to follow the law that we're putting forward. The second section that I find a little concerning is section 3.18, titled Violation of this Ordinance. I would say for our right of way, it's a different situation than for our parking lots, but with the first penalty being an infraction, but then quickly moving to a misdemeanor that's punishable by fine not exceeding $500. And here's the big issue that I have, or by imprisonment in the county jail not exceeding 6 months, or by both that fine and imprisonment. That seems to be a little excessive. So what are we doing to ensure that we're not creating, conditions whereby someone on their second violation could be looking at, $500 and or worse imprisonment? If you could speak to that, please.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate the question. So absolutely agree. We do not want to criminalize parking violations to that extent. This language that is in here is the current law that is available for us to write citations under via our ordinances. So that language is just the standard language that would apply to NCTD for writing a variety of citations. Generally speaking, though, in terms of parking, we obviously aren't looking to go that route. Back in November of 2020, the board did approve the award of an agreement to a company called Data Ticket, who is going to help NCTD stand up an administrative citation program. That administrative citation program would then enable us to have citations and things written and processed administratively through NCTD instead of going through the court system, which of course would enable us to manage manage costs and fees better and certainly avoid, those types of jail and imprisonment consequences that you noted. So that contract was awarded. The only challenge that we've been facing on actually moving ahead and implementing it is that in order for anyone to write citations under our program, we do have to have them complete and get certified through the PC 832 system, which is required by the state. That is an in-person course only that is offered by the state. And due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they have not had any classes available since year and a half ago. We are consistently in touch with the places around here that do offer that training. And right now we're getting the message that earliest will be 2022, probably first quarter, that they would reopen for in-person classes. So we'll continue to stay on top of that. And once those classes are open, we can get folks through and then really look at moving forward with that administrative citation program, which I think sounds like it will address these concerns you've raised here.
I appreciate that. I will go ahead and thank you so much for reviewing where we're at in that process, because obviously we don't want to be extremely punitive in our parking lot situation. We want to make sure that our customers are able to utilize it. But at the same time, we don't want to be criminalizing something that could be a different type of fine or administrative citation. I'll go ahead and I want to hear from the rest of my colleagues. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Contreras. I appreciate you bringing that up and airing that particular issue. Board Member Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to actually move forward staff's recommendation. It is for setting a public hearing for October 21st to hear from the public as well on this. But as to what Board Member Contreras was talking about, that is a standard misdemeanor that, as far as I know, as a deputy public defender in my other life, which I guess was a while ago now, it rarely happened unless there were some egregious kind of violation that would be brought forward. So I don't really think that anyone's going to do it for the first or second offense, but maybe with teeth, that would be just a standard misdemeanor language there. But anyway, I would like to move forward staff's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second on that?
Jenkins will second.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Desmond.
Hey, thank you. I'll let the sheriff know to clear out a wing of the jails for NCTD violators. Anyway, I got a question. So when would a person have to get a long-term parking permit? After 3 days, 5 days, 1 day, overnight? What would trigger a long-term, under the new proposed program that you're going to be putting forward? What would trigger a long-term parking permit requirement?
Under the new proposed program, which we haven't developed the firm parameters for yet, we would be looking at something probably in the 2 to 3 day excess time period. But again, we need to develop that and go back and double check all the language to make sure that we're covering everything first. But that's what we're looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Edson.
Yes, thank you. So kind of following up on Board Member Contreras's question regarding the criminalization of parking violations. Do I understand correctly that the data ticket administrative management, when that is able to happen, would that language be stricken? Is it something, or listening to Board Member Sanchez, is just something that exists to give it teeth and is rarely used?
I believe it's the latter. We do not have any intention of striking that language. There are a variety of other activities that could occur that would be covered under that code in the lots. So we would not want to remove that language. Again, we're standing up that program so that we can really focus on, moving forward with processing of administrative citations and the reasonable fees for the penalties of the routine infractions that we're seeing in the parking lots.
Thank you.
Board Member Edson, just for additional to what Karen said, think about the citation program being in front of the state law as a tool to that reflects the perspective that Board Member Contreras articulated and our ability to want to manage this in a context sensitive way. So we would continue to have the law as the backdrop, but we put this in the front of it. The citation program is going to cover parking, is going to cover other things likely too, such as fare violations as well. So we're trying to put this context sensitive approach in front of the law so that things don't become criminalized that don't necessarily make sense.
Okay, great. So with that, I see no more raised hands, and we have a motion by Board Member Sanchez and a second by Board Member Jenkins. So we will now vote.
On the motion of Board Member Esther Sanchez, seconded by Board Member Sharon Jenkins to approve agenda item 20, Board Member Bosbatal, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Gastelum?
Aye.
Board Chair Krantz?
Yes.
Board Member McNamara?
Aye.
Board Member Sanchez?
Sanchez, aye.
Board Member Desmond?
Aye.
Board Member Jenkins?
Aye.
Board Vice Chair Edson?
Yes.
Board Member Contreras?
Aye.
Motion passes with all board members present voting yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 21, Tracy Foster, our chief of the Chief Development Officer, is going to review this item. And issues related to land use, everybody that's in an elective office has been wrestling with those kind of things for quite some time. So it is quite refreshing to see that we're taking these very important steps. I understand that in October, we'll have another item related to this that will give a detailed presentation of the specific sites that the district is planning to redevelop. So today's action is essentially intended to set the framework for those redevelopment projects by addressing the state requirements and with HCD, Housing and Community Development Department. So Tracy?
Thank you, Chairman Kranz, and good afternoon, board members. In 2019, there were 3 actions that were taken in support of affordable housing development. To address the shortage of housing for Californians, Governor Newsom ordered the Department of General Services and the Department of Housing and Community Development to identify and prioritize excess state-owned property and aggressively pursue sustainable, innovative, cost-effective housing projects. Assembly Bill 1486 expanded the definition of local agency, revised the definition of surplus land, and broadened the definition of exempt surplus land, and strengthened the Surplus Land Act application by joining affordable housing developers with local surplus land opportunities. And lastly, Assembly Bill 1255 required specific inventories and reporting on surplus and excess lands. So in April of 2021, the California Department of Housing and Community Development issued Surplus Land Act guidance, which defined key terms within the law, as well as defining lands exempt from the provisions of the State Land Act. This guidance also described the mechanisms for identifying and disposing of surplus lands, including notice requirements to HCD, local public entities, and affordable housing developers. While this guidance was provided in April of 2021, it's important to note that the requirements were effective January 1st, 2020. Now, before a local agency can dispose of any land, it must be declared as either surplus or exempt surplus. And that declaration must be supported with written findings. And another item of importance to note is that disposition doesn't just mean sale of a property, it also includes leasing. Land that is considered exempt from HCD guidelines must be declared as such by the governing board of a local agency at a regular public meeting. So what is exempt surplus land? Surplus land that meets one or more of the types or conditions listed here is considered exempt surplus land, with, of course, the written findings that supports that conclusion. You'll notice that the first item is highlighted, real property used by a district for agency use. And this has been identified as the reason for exemption of NCTD's redevelopment properties. So a little bit about NCTD's agency use. NCTD's agency use of redevelopment sites is supported by the Sandag Long Range Planning, as well as by Board Policy Number 33, by encouraging redevelopment that improves transit rider experience, increases our transit ridership, reduces greenhouse gases, and addresses housing shortages. So I'm going to step back a little bit to the Oceanside Transit Center redevelopment. You'll recall that in January of 2020, we initiated the RFP for redevelopment, and the Surplus Land Act requirements went into effect January 1st, 2020. At that time, the Surplus Land Act requirements were not considered. However, shortly after the publication of the guidance by HCD in April of 2021, we did reach out to HCD to further discuss. In our conversations, it was clear that the agency use, NCTD's agency use existed, considering the parking replacement on the site that's needed for our transit customers, relocation of our bus island, the new GAO building, which will be located on site, the customer service and ticketing facilities, and of course, the ingress and egress of our buses. So in June, based on our conversations with HCD, we provided our written findings, and they were very quick in responding and agreed with our position the beginning of July. Now, circling back to NCTD's agency use in support of Sandag's long-range planning and board policy number 33, for all of our redevelopment activities, we have 4 areas of focus. So the first being to ensure that the redevelopment generates a long-term revenue stream to the district and maximizes the use of our assets. Second being our parking, replacement of parking that currently exists on the site for our transit customers' needs. Improving the rider experience by incorporating mobility hub concepts and taking a placemaking approach that complements the city's long-term planning objectives. And lastly, supporting regional housing needs with developments that include both market rate and affordable housing units. With the goal of progressing our redevelopment opportunities while still retaining our operational control for NCTD's transit purposes and ensuring that we remain compliant with the Surplus Land Act, it's necessary to declare our redevelopment sites as exempt surplus land. The redevelopment sites will continue to support NCTD's core mission by ensuring the sites maintain ticketing facilities and parking for our riders, increasing our transit ridership, and creating transit-oriented developments aimed at reducing greenhouse gases through residential and mixed uses. So listed here are the proposed redevelopment sites. And as mentioned earlier, I will be coming back next month to provide an update on the redevelopment activities for all of these sites. So if approved by the board, our next step would be to provide our written findings to HCD supporting the exempt surplus land declaration. We would anticipate at least a 30-day review period for that. And again, you'll see me next month with the redevelopment activities. So with that, it's staff recommendation to adopt resolution number 21-03, declaring specified redevelopment sites at Sprinter and Coaster stations located in Oceanside, Vista, San Marcos, Escondido, and Carlsbad as exempt surplus land in compliance with Surplus Land Act guidelines. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Chief Foster, for that presentation. And with that, I would call on Board Member Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the item. I just had a comment, though, that something I've been working on with the county is to increase development around the Buena Creek Sprinter Station. It's the only rail transit station in the unincorporated area for the county. And the land around it, unfortunately, I think is underutilized, and it's slated for some high density development. Unfortunately, the roads and infrastructure around that station need improvement, and I'm working with the county to hopefully maybe front some of those dollars to fix some of the roads and infrastructure and road alignment near the Sprinter station there. So just curious if NCTD in the future has any surplus land or any land or development ideas around that Buena Creek station. I'd be very interested, and we're looking at trying to develop that as like I said, as the only rail transit station in the unincorporated area of the county. So thank you.
Thank you for that comment. If I could just mention that our Sprinter, we did a study of all of the Sprinter parking lots. And next month I'll go through in detail. The Buena Creek site was included in that. And I'm certainly very open to working with anybody at the county regarding that site so that we can explore opportunities with infrastructure around it to see what could be done with those sites.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to front load the road issues ahead of time, and then to allow for more the housing around that area. So I'll tell staff to get in touch with you at NCTD and see if there's any opportunity. So I'll move approval of the item. Thanks.
Okay, I will second it, and I will call on Board Member Contreras.
This is a really exciting item. And first, before I get to my comments, I just want to say I completely agree with Supervisor Desmond. Board Member Desmond brought up a really important point about the Buena Creek Station and the infrastructure around it. I frequently see people having a hard time crossing from one side of the road to the other because it's such a busy intersection, and there's not a lot of connectivity, especially with the inland rail trail. It could be kind of dangerous to try and cross at that location. So I appreciate that it's being looked at. And I just want to highlight the fact we have two stations on this list that are in Vista, and I look forward to hearing more about what some of the vision is. And at the Vista Civic Center Sprinter Station, we have a new park just down the street that's about to be completed, Paula Vista Park, or it could be named something different by the public. That's open right now. But I'm in total support of this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Sanchez.
Thank you very much. I noticed that there were several sites in Oceanside. And just historically, when we were coming up with still working on our sub-area plan, in order to ensure maximum development opportunities, the city of Oceanside decided to do most of the environmental corridors along transportation corridors. So that includes the Sprinter, or the tracks that were there before the Sprinter, by the way. So I'm not sure. I believe there's going to be some environmental constraints. I'm not really, prepared today to talk about that, but we do have wildlife corridors that are very critical. Most of Oceanside is pretty urbanized already. So without having that information today, and I apologize that I don't have that today, but I won't be able to support it today. But as soon as I get more information, I guess I may change my mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Gasterlin.
Yeah, I have a general question. I really thank you for the presentation and the background. I'd like to ask, the fairgrounds in Del Mar, where there's a new station in the offing planned, I'm wondering how much land does NCTD have there? Del Mar is trying to work with the fairgrounds to identify a place to put 54 affordable housing units. And what HCD really wants is more of a mixed community than just workforce housing for the fairgrounds seasonal workers. So it occurs to me that maybe there's an opportunity here if there's land that might be designated as surplus. So I guess, has this been thought about? How much land is there? Maybe this is not the conversation for right now, but I'm asking the question to plant the seed.
So within that vicinity, we really just have the right-of-way property and the Y property there. I'm certainly happy to reach out to city staff and have a conversation just to explore.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And just for clarification, so we're asking the board again for approval to adopt the resolution to provide for establishment of this as exempt surplus land. And the specific sites that we're talking about are high priority sites identified that are district property. So these are sites that we view as the most promising sites that we own, but this is just part of the process. You wouldn't be approving any specific project. You would just be advancing the requirement that's set forth by the HCD that we declare this as exempt surplus.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question then. Does HCD require this property to be surplused? And I'd like to understand, maybe as there's actually the best person to answer, and that's, what are some of these environmental potential concerns?
Tracy?
I'm not sure I understand which property you're referring to. All of the ones listed?
Terry, is that what you mean?
I guess I'm not clear on exactly what we're voting on, so I'd like to be clear on that. And I'd like to be clear on environmental concerns before I vote.
Okay.
And I apologize for not being clear.
Sure. This is Jacob Gould. The guidelines from HCD modified the way that local agencies, county special districts have to declare the use of their property. So prior to the guidelines coming out in April of this year, if there was some retained use or any of those items that fell within the exemption, your city would essentially not do anything in terms of declaring it surplus or not. We wouldn't declare it exempt. We wouldn't declare it surplus. We would just move forward with whatever that project is. So it might be a parking lot redevelopment project, or if the local agency had a stake in a piece of property and they wanted to work on a joint development project with the developer, they would move forward with that because they retained some ownership interest. The way that the guidelines now work is that you have to make a definitive statement one way or the other on every piece of property you're going to do anything with: lease, license, sell, anything. And so one of those things is that you have to declare it exempt. So previously, this was sort of done behind the scenes and was outside of the four corners of the Surplus Land Act. So that's the biggest change. So what this is doing is we're looking at all of these pieces of property as we go forward in the planning stages, as Tracy mentioned. And in order to do that and to get ahead of the curve, so we don't have to do what we did with the Oceanside Transit Center, is try to play sort of catch up and have those discussions with HCD and do it after the fact, is we're getting ahead of the process, declaring these exempt surplus because we do retain these uses. They're all active transit stations. We need to maintain parking. We need to maintain public access. We need to maintain operational and maintenance access as well. So these things are really things that are going to be complementary to our core agency uses. And that's the purpose of this, is to declare this exempt so that we can move forward with the underlying planning and moving forward with potentially going out for a solicitation to do something, whatever is identified with those pieces of property. But it would not require us to halt that process for 3 months, put this out on 120-day review for a either a park agency, a school, or a low income housing collaborative to come in and say, hey, I'd like to buy that from you, because that's really not what's on the table. What's on the table is sort of a collaborative approach with NCTD to maintain those public uses. So that's the intent of what's before you today. It's very early in the process. So all environmental work and everything else in terms of planning and what you would normally see through an entitlement process, that's to come in the future once we've identified those potential uses and potential projects. So very early in the process. So that environmental work is to come and is down the line and would be required.
And so the NCTD policy, which has always involved a collaborative approach to the redevelopment of any of its property with the jurisdiction in which it is located, hasn't changed at all. Is that correct? We would, this particular step is only to clear a bureaucratic hurdle in order to continue conversations with each jurisdiction in which these properties are located. Is that correct?
That is correct. We would still continue with our practice of reaching out to all of the cities, working collaboratively with them to advance these developments.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Sanchez.
Thank you. If in the case of during the analysis and environmental studies, it was determined that the project would, because of environmental constraints, the kind of project that would be envisioned would have to be a lot smaller to be able to, have the least amount of impact, and it was considered not cost effective. What would happen then if there was a decision? There are environmental constraints. This is not the ideal. Our ideal project here won't fit. What would happen then to the property?
So Board Member Sanchez, I'm going to
classification.
Okay, I'm going to jump in because I just wanted to clarify a process, and I think Board Chair Krantz hit the head on the nail. The example that I cite back to you is the Oceanside Transit Center project, where we work really, really closely with your city on the development of the project, including.
Yeah, that was a very urban place.
Right. No. And follow me. I'm not saying these sites are going to be Oceanside Transit Center. What I'm saying is that we're going to respect the requirements set forth by the city. The key piece that we do is ultimately the cities have to approve these projects. So we're not going to try to develop a project that we know that the cities ultimately are not going to approve. So the front end of all of these processes will be a more detailed planning study. Obviously, we will recognize exactly how you all have zoned these areas, and we will work through that process to bring forward a project. Here's my general perspective. If we don't get on page with the city of Oceanside about a project, then we're not going to push that project forward. We've spent time in the past on projects ultimately to have those projects fail because the community or the city didn't support that project. So I don't see the scenario for any of these sites that we're going to be coming forward with a project, because even if the NCTD board approved it, the cities will have the ultimate control over the final approval, or if any approval is granted to a developer to build a project. So it's not in our interest to advance a project that will not get approved by the city.
As a follow-up question then, how transparent is this going to be? For example, represent Oceanside. Would I be able to vote on, and I've heard that there might be a conflict, but is this so transparent that there's not a conflict envisioned? So I'll be able to talk here at NCTD and raise any concerns that, say, my city might have, or would I be not be able to do that?
So again, that's going to depend on what the nature of the project is, how that goes forward, and who the parties to whatever contracting are. I know that we've spoken before on conflicts. Those are evaluated on a case-by-case basis. This process here does not impact any of those items.
Okay, full transparency. I'll be able to come in, and if there's an issue to be raised, I'll be able to raise it at this board level. Correct?
I think that isn't that something that you would prefer to be taking up at your city council, because there's a process that NCTD would be working with your city on. And I think that that's the issue, is that you can't be on both sides of the table. And so if
at all times, I represent my city, right? So I don't see a conflict. This is something that I'm an attorney. I, of course, study conflict law, and I find this problem interesting because it doesn't lend itself to be for transparency. I think if someone, a city representative, feels that they have a need to raise an issue, whatever the issue is, they ought to be able to do this with all the other cities, because I feel that that is the best way of resolving issues, is to be able to talk about it in the open, right? And to have a sense of, okay, we're going to be able to work these things out. It's when we start having these kind of rules that, well, there might be some lawsuit, which I can't even begin to imagine what would that lawsuit be, right? That I start to wonder, well, how much transparency do we really have here? That's my concern.
So, Mayor Sanchez, if I could, so for all of these sites that were listed here right now, we've already engaged with conversations with all of the jurisdictions on these sites. In some cases, we've had some presentations already to city councils, and we remain committed to do so for all of the cities.
Right. Well, we haven't had a presentation in Oceanside, so.
Understood. We have talked at staff level on these sites and reviewed some preliminary information. Again, this is at the very, very beginning stages of this.
Right,
And
but
we would
it's not
continue
come to
to
the
do so.
council at all. So whatever staff is doing, they could be, asked to stop by council at any point.
Sure. I'm happy to work with staff and bring information to council at any time.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Doesn't answer my question though, about transparency.
Okay, I see no hands raised. So Anthony, we will now vote.
On the motion of Board Member Jim Desden, seconded by Board Chair Tony Krantz to approve agenda item 21. Board Member Bapatal, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Gastelum?
No, because I'm unsure of the transparency so far.
Board Chair Krantz?
Yes.
Board Member McNamara?
Aye.
Board Member Sanchez?
Sanchez, nay.
Board Member Desmond?
Aye.
Board Member Jenkins?
Aye.
Board Vice Chair Edson? Believe you're on mute, ma'am.
Got that? Aye.
Board Member Contreras?
Aye.
On the motion of Board Member Jim Desmond, seconded by Board Chair Tony Krantz to approve agenda item 21. Motion passes with all board members present voting yes, with the exception of Board Members Gastelum and Sanchez, no.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to item number 22. Karen Tukolsky, the Chief Operations Officer of the Support Services, is going to review this item. And it's a proposed pilot program with Uber and Lyft for microtransit services that support NCTD's ongoing effort to provide better first and last mile services to our riders, which is critical. It's a critical component to our zero delay initiative. And it's something that we've been talking about for a while, so I'm pretty excited to see it advancing. But before we get into the presentation for this, I would like to point out that this is an item upon which we received a communication from Board Member Quirk to the entire board. And so I am going to hear this item and am still able to consider it without any concern for my ability to, the email that we received didn't impact my ability to hear this item and to make a fair and impartial decision on it. And so with that, I would ask if there are any other board members who would like to disclose any communications or make statements related to this item before the vote. Board Member Sanchez.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chair. I will state for the record that I saw an email from Quirk that looked like it was sent to several people. So I did not actually read it. So I feel that I didn't even see the subject matter. I saw who it was from and that it was regarding an item, and that was it. So I did not look at the body. It did not, the item actually did not suggest whether it was a yes, no. I can't even tell you now what it was. So I just wanted to, for the record, to state that I am not, did not read the body, have not been influenced in any way, shape, or form by the subject, the subject that was on there. Just
Thank you, Mayor Sanchez. Vice Chair Edson.
Yes, on September 14th, I received an email communication from NCTD board member Dan Quirk addressed to the entire board referencing this agenda item. The receipt of said email has not impacted my ability to make a fair and impartial decision on the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Contreras.
I too want to disclose that on September 14th, I received an email that was directed to the board from board member Quirk. I didn't read the email and probably won't ever read the email. And it has not impacted my ability to be fair and transparent and look at this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Jenkins.
I also received the same email on the 14th. I have not had a chance to review it yet, so it will not affect my decision.
Thank you. Dr. Bhat Patel.
Yeah, similar to my colleagues, I did receive the same email and I have not had a chance to review it yet, so it shouldn't affect my decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Gastelum.
Yes, I received the email along with 1,000 other emails that I haven't had a chance to read it yet. However, I'm sitting here in the seat from Del Mar. I am here today to make sure that there's no question about the vote being tainted. So I'm here instead of Dan Quirk, whether there's real or perceived conflict or prior bias.
Thank you, Board Member Desmond.
Yeah, I saw it and read the email. I just have a question for our attorney. As far as is that a Brown Act violation, or what's the stance when a board member sends an email to all the board members?
Siri Adams.
Curious what that is from our attorney, please.
Yes. Hi, Supervisor Desmond and the board. So as I sit here, I do not make determinations as to whether someone has violated the Brown Act per se. There was a communication that went from our board chair and our board vice chair this morning to Mr. Quirk, indicating that we believed that this was likely an improper serial communication with the board in an attempt to impact the vote of the board today on these items.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chief Tukolsky, you have the floor.
Thank you. Again, good afternoon again. So joining me for today's presentation are Damon Blythe, Chief Operations Officer for Bus, and Katie Persons, our Interim Director of Planning. I'm going to go ahead and go through the presentation, and then the three of us are here to answer any questions that you all may have for us. All right. So to start off with just a little bit of background, Mobility as a Service provides an integrated suite of mobility services, amenities, and technologies that help create a seamless and optimized customer experience. As we have been talking about over the past several months, NCTD is advancing phased implementation plans to implement Mobility as a Service, which will ultimately include some of the features such as those that you see listed here. And NCTD is actively collaborating with both SANDAG and the California Integrated Ticketing Program on our efforts in this area. So relative to the items that we're going to be talking with you about here today, as you're all aware, the board did approve expanded coaster service at its meeting in July 2021. And those increased frequencies, which will take effect next month, address current schedule service gaps that exist between 25 to 214 minutes on our weekday schedule. So the proposed pilot microtransit programs with Uber and Lyft that we're going to talk about at both the Sorrento Valley and Carlsbad Poinsettia stations do complement those increased frequencies. Also, we're going to talk with you about a proposed microtransit pilot program that would be anchored out of our Vista Transit Center that would be support for our Sprinter and Breeze riders. And then lastly, we want to talk with you about a proposed transit guaranteed ride home program. All of these proposed pilot programs would begin in October of 2021 and could last for a period up to 12 months. So starting off with a little bit of information about the proposed pilot at Sorrento Valley. As you're all aware, the Sorrento Valley station primarily serves commuters who work at one of over 100 area businesses. And that area does include several large headquarters. Coaster rider first and last mile connections are currently served by the Sorrento Valley Coaster Connection Service, which is operated by MTS. That service provides 5 routes that operate during peak morning and afternoon commute hours only. The proposed pilot program that we're talking about here today would operate Monday through Friday during all hours that Coaster operates. So picture is always worth 1,000 words. Want to provide a little bit, just an overview of the pilot area in question. As you're all aware, this is a very low density area. Residential areas are very sparse. Businesses are pretty far spread out. And it's not one of an area that is really designed to really support a lot of significant fixed route connections. We kind of call this a transit desert area, if you will, just by the nature of the geography and the way it's located. The next map that you see here actually shows what the proposed pilot service area would be. And I think that further illustrates the desertness and the expanse of the area. As you can see, all those colored lines now show where the Sorrento Valley Coaster Connection routes go. That blue area would be the proposed pilot service area that we would have the services geofenced within. And as you can see, they go out pretty far in all directions. So again, really not an area that is well suited to some sort of a regular routine fixed route connection to provide services to those customers with their places of employment. So the next proposed pilot service area would be Carlsbad Poinsettia, very similar to the Sorrento Valley one. The Carlsbad Poinsettia station also serves a significant number of commuters that work many large businesses, a couple of large headquarters that we're all familiar with as well, of course, Thermo Fisher and Viasat. The current first and last mile connections for our riders are supported by our Breeze 444 and 445 routes, which again, similar to Sorrento Valley, operate during peak morning and afternoon commute hours only. And also, as with Sorrento Valley, this proposed pilot would operate Monday through Friday during all hours that Coaster operates. So just some more pictures. Again, kind of another transit desert area. The businesses are far apart, not anything much to speak of close by in terms of residences. So again, really not area that is well suited to any sort of significant peak or fixed route services. So the next slide shows, again, graphically, what our current routes 444, 445 look like. And again, you can see how far away from the station they go. And that light blue shaded area would be that geofence area within which the proposed pilot would operate. So a little bit about the goals for these particular pilots. Of course, we want to increase ridership and revenue. These pilots are also an opportunity for us to do some information and data gathering. We'll be able to find out more about the travel market, particularly post-pandemic, find out more from our customers about what their experience is, help us identify some travel patterns, and of course, give us good information on pricing impacts that will help us continue to refine these types of first and last mile cost models that we're looking at in terms of the overall mobility as a service programs that we're trying to implement here over the long term. So the last proposed pilot area that we want to talk about is Vista Transit Center, where, as we mentioned before, we would be supporting our first and last mile Sprinter Breeze connections. So currently, riders at Vista Transit Center who are coming in on Sprinter are taking our Breeze routes for our first and last mile connections. The challenges with those routes is that they have limited headways, and in addition, even once you get off at your stop, you have a fairly long walking distance to typically get to your end destination, which of course you then have to repeat on the way back to make it home in the evening. So this area does support connections to key destinations such as the county courthouse, the Vista Library, Civic Center, as well as multiple schools and medical offices. This proposed pilot program would actually operate 7 days a week, and it would operate during all hours that Breeze is available, which is basically 4 a.m. to midnight. And this is a map of the proposed service area for the pilot at Vista Transit Center. Again, you can see some of the colored lines indicating the existing bus routes. And again, also reflecting, as you can see just from the map, that it's a wide area, and those routes don't necessarily reach very easily all the points that we need our customers to be able to get to effectively to use our services. Relative to our goals for Vista Transit Center pilot, a little bit of similarity, of course, with some of our goals for Sorrento and Carlsbad Poinsettia. But we also want to particularly take this opportunity to ascertain the impact on customer experience for our low income and disabled communities. And we also want to see what we can do to reduce the travel time and transfers for short distance trips. So those are just a couple of the highlights that I wanted to call out about our particular goals for the pilot that we're proposing at this area. So relative to the pilot program structure for those three areas, the trips would operate, as we have talked about, within the geofenced areas for each respective location, as you've seen by the maps that we provided. Customers would book trips via the mobile app with their respective provider, could choose either Uber or Lyft as they prefer. The customer would pay the first $2.50. That equates to the one-way fare for bus or Sprinter right now. NCTD would then pay up to the next $7.50 of the trip, and then the customer would pay any additional costs if they were going for some sort of longer distance travel, and those, there were costs above that $10. Services for passengers with mobility devices will be provided by MV Transportation under our agreement with NCTD. So the last proposed pilot program I want to talk with you about today is the Guaranteed Transit Ride Program. So this is really designed to be a complement to the existing Guaranteed Ride Home program that Sandag and iCommute offer. So under that program, the requirements are that the ride does have to originate at a customer's work location. They will only provide transportation to the customer's home or the location of their parked car, and they're not intended to use this program for service disruptions or delays. It really is intended to fill in a gap in service when there isn't transit available to help get the customer from work back home. So this particular proposed pilot program would address service disruptions and significant delays. And examples would be trespasser incidents or Breeze trip cancellations due to staffing shortages. It would support all of our modes during all of our hours of service. Like with the other programs, it would last, as we said, up to that 12-month maximum time period. The specifics of the program, including NCTD cost contributions, are currently in development. If approved, we will certainly keep the board apprised on our developments in this area as we move forward with this program. So relative to financials, the total cost value for each vendor is not to exceed $1 million each, for total program value not to exceed $2 million. The fiscal contribution that NCTD would be committing to the first and last mile micro transit pilot programs, as well as the Guaranteed Transit Ride Program pilot together, would be $375,000 over the remainder of the current fiscal year. We are also in discussions with Sandag at the moment to see if they are interested in providing funding for the Sorrento Valley and Carlsbad Poinsettia pilots from Transnet as part of the coaster service expansion. So one thing I want to just stress and make sure that I clarify on this slide is that the contract values are set much higher than what NCTD is committing to the program. Our commitment is that $375,000 over the remainder of the current fiscal year. The reason that we have additional value added into these contracts is because there is a lot of opportunity, a lot of unknowns. We are not sure where it will go. Certainly, if Sandag is willing to help us provide funding for Sorrento Valley and Poinsettia, that may open up additional interest or opportunity. We just want to make sure that, as we move forward with this pilot, we do have some flexibility to expand things if there is a demand and if available funding is identified. But again, the commitment we're asking for today from NCTD would be the $375,000. And with that, the staff recommendation would be to authorize the executive director to finalize and execute the agreements with Uber and Lyft for the microtransit pilot programs for contract value not to exceed $1 million for each agreement, total not to exceed of $2 million for up to the 12 months of the pilot program. And of course, we would have review and concurrence of general counsel. So that concludes my presentation. With that, my colleagues and I are happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Board Member McNamara.
Thank you. I apologize. I want to go back to the Quirk email. I thought I'd received it and deleted it, but I needed to find it in my trash, and I wasn't fast enough. But I did receive the email. I didn't read it, and I threw it away. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Vice Chair Edson.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that Board Member McNamara was finished. I just want to say that I'm pretty excited about these pilots. I think that anything that we can do to continue our mission to deliver safe, convenient, reliable, and user-friendly public transportation services is in the interest of the entire San Diego region. And I worked in that transit desert of Sorrento Valley. It truly is a transit desert, and it's grown tremendously since the time that I worked there. Even then, it was among the highest employment centers. It now, I believe, is considered the highest employment center because it's a bit of a megalopolis. Perhaps we could look at the site map that was shown earlier for Sorrento Valley Station. So I think it's pretty clear here. We've got UC San Diego, we've got Sorrento Valley with all the tech, we've got Sorrento Mesa with the medical and hospital facilities, and the UTC type area. It's just, I think, incumbent upon us to try to continue to move people not during just those set peak times, but to give them true access to transportation. So again, I'm pretty excited about this, and I support it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Bhat Patel.
Sure, thank you. Just one question on clarification for the public's sake, because I know micro mobility gets thrown around, or micro transit gets thrown around quite a bit. So just to clarify that this would be like a shared shuttle service from these particular locations. Is that accurate?
Yes, so this is Damon Blythe, the Chief Operations Officer for Bus. So currently Uber and Lyft have suspended all operation of the so-called pool that they used to have because of COVID. That's not to say that you and your friend couldn't book a ride into the service and take the ride together. But as far as Uber and Lyft booking rides together, pooling you with a random stranger, that won't happen for now because of that requirement by Uber and Lyft. We have indicated to them that we are very interested in that option becoming available as soon as possible. But for right now, it'll just be non-shared rides unless you book it for you and your friends.
Okay. And so just to clarify, for now, it's just regarding, each individual being able to take a particular last mile service, first mile, last mile service. And again, it's vehicles that will take folks from that particular space to, their workplace.
Correct. Yeah. So both of these, all three of these zones have the requirement that the trip either start or end at the station.
Okay. And then in terms of the type of fleet, do we have any understanding as to whether we're going to try to see if we can commit to, I know we're starting to try to move towards more EV or hybrid. And so just trying to understand, I know that this is obviously a partnership, so it's difficult maybe to potentially have that clause in there, but I'm just curious as to if we thought about that or if we talked about that at all.
We dream big about that. Those are things that we definitely want to do. So, the thing that I don't want to do is sometimes confuse, but our microtransit program or mobility as a service program has lots of different layers to it. Right now within the transit industry, for a lot of the smaller type vehicles that we're looking for, there's not a high availability of zero emission vehicles that are US manufactured that can fit our needs. This is something that's a high priority to us. It actually is going to be something we're going to need to do because we're going to need to leverage our battery purchase infrastructure and our hydrogen infrastructure. So this is definitely on our list for things that as we start moving into additional phases as these become available, that we would be converting just like with our bus fleet, with our smaller vehicle fleet with zero emissions technology.
Okay. And then I'm just going to ask again with regards to the microtransit. One question, just is would this also include scooters and bikes at any point?
No, so this is just an element. So in terms of our mobility as a service program, scooters, yes, and bikes, yes. But in terms of this item, this is just part of a transportation element that's within the family of our mobility as a service. The scooters, bikes, you name it, feet, all are going to be part of the mobility as a service program for us.
Okay, so for now, it doesn't include that, but it could potentially in the future, and that would come before the full board when we wanted to move forward with that?
Absolutely. That's absolutely our plan to do that. This is just an element of the
Okay.
overall
No, I
program.
just wanted to make sure. Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Board Member Jenkins.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to check, we had our pilot in Carlsbad previously. I think it was Carlsbad Connection or something similar to that. How is this pilot similar as well as different from that pilot?
Okay. So this is apples and maybe hams. So just as a reminder, we had a micro transit service, Carlsbad Connector, that we did in partnership with Sandag and the city of Carlsbad. That overall program was negatively impacted by COVID. We chose not to allow the contract to expire. And we actually are in the process of going back out to bid to purchase a microtransit app, purchase vehicles, and we're going to be restoring those services. And Board Member Jenkins, if you remember, the pilot areas that we've talked about are City of Carlsbad, City of San Marcos, and Vista for that. This service, as compared to this service that we're talking about here, are two different things. The Uber Lyft pilots are intended to operate and provide additional flexibility within our overall transportation program. So in the future, we want to be able to provide people with choice between how they want to do their first and last mile trip, and allow for people to have an integrated pricing experience. So you could be on a bus or a train, you could step off that train and already have planned your Uber, or you could connect to services that we directly provide. Some of the distinctions that we're making is, for example, we see a big opportunity for us to capture more middle school and high school kid ridership, saving families from having to purchase cars and insurance and all the things that go with it. We view that as a service that would be operated with NCTD employees under contract with MV to give the public greater confidence about who's their kid riding with vehicles that we own and control, with the application that would let you know that your kid has actually been on our vehicle. So that differentiates from the Uber program, which gives an added flexibility for people. It may be the case with the Uber program in the future, as an example, that for if you needed to go to the grocery store, and your grocery store was within this window of travel that we see as magically 8 or less miles, rather than having to go out to the bus stop and wait for that bus and try to come back with those groceries, you could then just call and pay a fare, pay that Uber fare of $250 and be able to do that trip really, really quickly. So what we're trying to do is to change our services to offer greater choice, give you the capability to make much quicker, more efficient trips commensurate with your needs. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to do a pitch here for Oceanside. Oceanside has the lowest jobs to residents ratio in the entire county. That means that more Oceanside residents hit the streets to get to work. And of that, about 73% of the workforce that is commuting to work commutes by themselves in a car, a minimum of 22 miles, I believe it is, an average of 22 miles. The Sprinter was a great idea. At the time that it was created, there was this idea about connecting to major places that people would go to. And for Oceanside, it's Miracosta, it's Tri-City Medical Center. I'm really glad to see Vista Courthouse because I worked at the courthouse for many years. And I remember a judge saying, look, I live just in Escondido, and if I were to take the bus, it would take me 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening to get home. So of course he didn't take public transportation. But there's also the Carlsbad Mall. There are major places that people go to, and we still have all this congestion. I again appreciate the Vista Courthouse, but I just think, and yes, you're right. This is apples to oranges here. When I heard it's an individual, that's kind of hard. I'm really looking for, the kind of transit that would connect more than, say one person to get to, say, Miracosta, which is highly, has a ton of students, as well as Tri-City and, other places. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Contreras.
Thank you for the information, the presentation. I think this is really exciting because it's another layer of data. So I'm curious about how North County Transit District, if there's going to be data sharing with the respective cities and how that collaboration will work. Just looking at the city of Vista, we have Vista High School, Vista Magnet Middle School, and various other schools along this in this geofenced area. But then we also have a ton of breweries too. So this is a great way to promote, driving safely. And if you're unable to drive safely, that you can have a connection. One of the things that, I had brought up at a council meeting that seemed to garner some favor if in the future we saw the need. But, we have a lot of stuff going on in our downtown. It continues to grow. And potentially, if this pilot program, we see good things come from it and a necessity, I think it would really behoove the individual cities to start looking at parking and drop-off zones for Uber and Lyft as part of a micro transit and micro mobility way to, ensure that we don't have traffic congestion and darting in and out to try and get people safely to their destination. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But I am just curious about the data that we're going to be receiving and if that's going to be shared with the individual cities or how that looks. Thanks.
So Board Member Contreras, so the answer is yes, we're going to share it. We're going to share data. All of that data that we get is public information, but it's really important that we share information because we do want to partner with cities and communities. I also want to just make sure that I remind the board of the big picture that we're trying to move to as a district. Because I'm there with Mayor Sanchez. We are planning to do things in Oceanside throughout our service area. But if you remember, we have the board approved this study, it's the breeze speed and optimization study, reliability study. That's is where we're looking at to reduce the number of fixed routes that we have, so big bus routes, but to make those really high performing routes that are running 15 minutes and improving the speeds on major corridors, the road improvements, the technology improvements. We want to do that because then we want to move the system, expand pretty much our entire system with the overlay of our mobility as a service options and packages so that people can have that flexibility, as Board Member Sanchez talks about, that when I come off that Sprinter and I want to get my connection to Miracosta, that I can get that in a shared ride in a very efficient way. So technology has kind of caught up with our dreams. We've been trying to do this for years, but the technologies now exist that will allow us to be able to group these trips in a really efficient way and get people there much faster than what we do today and keep people out of the elements. Part of our whole goal is to make transit much more easy, much more context sensitive. No one wants to stand outside unnecessarily waiting or having a long ride time. That's not supportive of people having freedom and mobility. So we're right there with you. We just need to support because the big piece that's going to cost us is some money as we look to move to 15-minute headways. And then as we move to implement these different boutique types of services, think about it. There's not a whole lot of Uber trips going 8 miles for $2.50. So we're going to have to work together with communities and with funding entities to really true up the cost of providing these services in a manner that I think that the public expects those services to be provided. So collaboration is a piece of it, but we need to make sure that we're moving together in a partnership, not just NCTD doing this because we can't do this by ourselves.
Thank you. Board Member Desmond.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity here and for the presentation. You know, I got kind of mixed feelings on this, and I know it was in the email, but I had already had thoughts about this prior to reading the email that got sent out to everybody. And that's, you know, we're subsidizing, I guess, more of our choice riders with the Poinsettia station and the Sorrento Valley station. When I used to ride the train, the vast majority, about 2/3 of people would get off at Sorrento Valley. And there were buses and things like that there taking them, you know, Qualcomm had a bus and other buses. So I guess from the perception, Matt, that we potentially are subsidizing the more affluent ridership, what do you say to that?
This is Damon again. I'll jump in on this one. So
Damon, I asked Matt.
Well, let me take a stab at it. And then if you don't like my answer, we can go back to Matt.
Well, how about we go to him first? Because that's
all right.
So I think first, Damon I want Damon to review some statistics. I think part of this narrative about the coaster serving only high income people is a little bit of a misnomer. So let's start with that, Supervisor Damon, so that let Damon give you a little bit of context based upon the onboard survey for the coaster that was conducted in 2015, so that you can gain an understanding of two factors. Households, in terms of how many people are living in households greater than two, and then relative income to the riders who ride the coaster. So Damon, can you just first address that?
Matt, I asked about the 2 stops, not the coaster overall.
Well, that information would be representative of the entire riding public on the coaster, Jim. So,
and my question is more to those 2 stations.
Right, and this data is directly relevant to all of the stations.
All right, go ahead. See what you got.
So relative to the number of people in a household, 43.9% indicated that they live in a household with two people, at least two people, and 35.9% indicated that they live in a household with 3 or 4 or more people. So between the two of them, that's 79.8% that live in a household with more than 2 people. And then in regards to household income, 21.1% of those households make less than $50,000 a year. 15.2% make between 50 and 75,000, and 16.8% make between $75,000 and $99,000 a year. So 53.1% of the people writing have a household income less than $100,000 a year.
Well, I guess though, the jobs at these two, the Poinsettia and Sorrento Valley stations, I would, and I don't know, I don't have statistics, but I know the jobs there pay much more than probably any, maybe except for the downtown stop of the other stations near them. So and I'm fine with the program. I just want to make sure that, perception wise, we're not, kind of stepping in something. The fact that we're technically subsidizing some of the higher income ridership at these stops.
Well, I just feel confident again, looking at the statistics and looking at whether there's yes, there are going to be some high income earners that work in all of those areas and station stops. Keep in mind, Oceanside is the anchor station. City of San Diego is the other anchor station with significant ridership. At Sorrento Valley and at Poinsettia, we know those are job centers. They've been significantly highlighted within the 5 big moves as major job locations. And those locations end up having all facets of different types of jobs that are made available to people. And clearly, based upon the statistics, if roughly 50-something% of that population of coastal riders are living in a household of greater than 2 people, then $100,000 is just not a whole lot of money in San Diego County. And so from my point of view, this program is right on spot in terms of giving people access to jobs, which is the most important piece. The other element that I would say is spot on is the element that we talked about a couple of months ago at the board meeting, is that we do intend to explore a pilot program of a low-income fare program for coastal riders, because we do think it's important that more people gain access to the coaster to be able to get to jobs. But in no way am I concerned that this is a subsidy to the wealthy people. But I also think it's important for this board to keep in mind, what is the mandate of NCTD? The mission of NCTD is to deliver safe, convenient, reliable, and user-friendly public transportation services. Our vision is to build an integrated transit system that enable our customers to travel easily and efficiently throughout our growing region. That's our mission and vision. And so we operate a comprehensive set of modes to meet specific market needs. The coaster, for example, is super duper effective in terms of reducing vehicle miles traveled. And so I don't want us to lose sight. I think someone mentioned to me, it's just an important thing that we don't mix these different goals and have them competing against each other, whether it be equity, environmental. It's important that we keep these things together in lockstep, because they're important for us to work on all of these things in a seamless manner.
Yeah, and I would add, Board Member Desmond, that not long ago, a tree hugging buddy of mine stopped by with volume 1, number 1 of the Coaster magazine that was published in the 90s. And he related his experience as a coaster rider. He was so excited about having the opportunity to take commuter rail to work in Sorrento Valley. And after about a month, he realized that it wouldn't work for him because of the number of times that he was stranded without a ride back to the train in time, or there wasn't enough trains. And so I think that one aspect of this particular program will be to attract more riders. Vice Chair Edson mentioned that herself. It just is going to open up the opportunity once you get past that issue of people who are afraid to take the coaster or the sprinter because they can't get from the station to where they need to go and back again to get home. And so I think that a program like this, while it may have the appearance that we're subsidizing wealthy people, what we are doing is we are attracting riders to public transit, which for every vehicle mile that they would have traveled, we benefit from them taking the train. So
I get all that. I get everything on that, and I'm okay. And this is only 350,000 of the $2 million that are, I guess it would be the cap. I guess I would like to see, after this pilot, maybe we do a pilot with the next 350,000 at all the stations, so that it's not just the ones of the higher income levels, I guess, for ridership. So I would like to see that. Maybe we compare the two, and maybe I think it would work everywhere. And I'm just concerned about the ones that were chosen today. And I agree with all of the incentives and everything else. And it's heavily subsidized. So I guess I would just put the suggestion in for next time around. Let's try it at all the stations and see what that outcome might be. Thank you.
Number one, all of us in the room agree with you. We would love to see this program expanded everywhere. And number two, in regards to the subsidy, this is actually less of a subsidy per passenger than what we subsidize Breeze.
Okay.
Thanks, Damon. Board Member Gasterlin.
Here we go. The UCSD, University of California, San Diego, has a shuttle, a free shuttle that goes from the Sorrento Valley station up to the university. Is that shuttle related in any way, or would it be substituted by this particular program for Sorrento Valley?
So UCSD, this is Damon again, UCSD in 2019 decided that they were no longer going to be funding a lot of the shuttles that ran off of their campus. Their mandate was that their shuttle system would only be for people that were on campus. They subsequently approached us at MTS and asked us if we would be willing to go in on a partnership between us, MTS, and UCSD to fund and operate the shuttles that went off campus. So MTS actually operates Route 974, which goes from the coaster station up to UCSD, and MTS operates that, and UCSD and Nctd split the operating cost on that 50-50.
Great. And the students have free bus passes, I believe. So do they get to ride this for free and others pay?
The students do not have free bus passes. The students pay for those bus passes through their student fees, but they do get a significant discount off of what the off-the-street person would pay. That bus pass does get them on the buses for free, though.
And would these buses persist even if the Uber and Lyft worked out?
Yes,
Okay,
for now.
thank you.
Board Member Jenkins.
Yes, I have a question. I believe it might have been Damon made a comment that the numbers he was quoting was from 2015. Was that correct?
That's correct. It's from the onboard survey that was conducted in 2015 by Sandag. The next one would have been 2020, but there was no onboard survey due to the global pandemic.
Okay, so we're making this decision based on information from 2015. So those numbers could be significantly different by now.
They could be.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Edson.
Yes, thank you. So I guess just to reiterate, I strongly support this opportunity to provide a program that will kind of be icing on the cake to what we have and expand it and increase ridership. I think this is part of our mission. Mission is to provide mobility. So with that, I would move this item forward. So it's a motion. Thanks.
All right, we have a motion from Vice Chair Edson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
The race.
I'll let you pick, Anthony, who seconded first.
Flip a
Let's
coin.
give it to the mayor.
Before we vote, I would like to ask a couple of quick questions. So MTS is going to terminate their peak service route buses.
No,
Okay, and the Uber and Lyft vehicles will be the typical Uber and Lyft vehicles,
yes,
which is whatever the particular Uber or Lyft driver personally owned vehicle is.
correct.
So what do we do for ADA mobility impaired people who might want to participate in this program? They use our Lyft program?
So what will happen is when you open up the app, it'll indicate that if you have a mobility device, you call a special phone number, which will go directly to one of MV's subcontractors, Soul Transportation. Soul will be handling those ADA or mobility device passengers in a Ford Transit van that has a lift.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands, so Anthony, if you're ready, we can vote.
Thank you, sir. On the motion of Board Vice Chair Joel Edson, seconded by Board Member Terry Gashland to approve agenda item number 22. Board Member Bapatal, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Gashland?
Aye.
Board Chair Krantz?
Aye.
Board Member McNamara?
Aye.
Board Member Sanchez?
Sanchez, aye.
Board Member Desmond?
Aye.
Board Member Jenkins?
Aye.
Board Vice Chair Edson?
Aye.
Board Member Contreras?
Aye.
Motion passes with all board members present voting yes.
Okay, thank you. And that takes us to our informational item number 23, and there's just the one, and Chris Orlando, the Chief of Advocacy, Marketing and Communications and former council member in San Marcos and NCTD Board Chair, will review this item. And in this item, the staff is going to provide an overview of the new regional fare system, Pronto, and an update on its implementation. I was excited to attend the launch of the event for Pronto on September 1st at the 12th and Imperial MTS station there. And there was a lot of excitement. And I think that throughout the system, both MTS and NCTD people are pleased to see this program. So with that, I would turn it over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Chair Krantz. I think hopefully the board is now aware that Pronto, the new regional fare system, launched on September 1st. Pronto replaces the current Compass card system and Compass cloud systems. It's an account-based system that allows passengers to buy fares at TVMs, ticket vending machines, online, through the Pronto mobile app, at customer service centers, and through a retail network that's been established. Riders can tap a reloadable card. You see an image here of what the reloadable cards look like, or scan a QR code from their Pronto app to ride. This was a extremely significant project for the district. It was a 2+ year implementation project. It had active involvement from a number of departments within the district: IT, finance, customer service, marketing, procurement, facilities, and others. Daily coordination with MTS, who is the fare system manager for the project, as well as numerous vendors and consultants. It required the installation of new ticket vending machines, validators, customer service equipment, bus driver control units, station and platform signage, and significant other infrastructure. From a information technology standpoint, it included a new website, a new mobile app, significant software component designs and equipment testing and implementation. Finance, very involved in the financial reporting, the implementation of the new fare ordinance, which the Pronto system brings to the region, as well as the ticket vending sales flow and other important aspects of the financial proportion of the Pronto system. Our bus operations, train operations, and customer service teams are also really involved. A lot of that work had basically two main thrusts of their involvement. First was the hardware installations on vehicles and becoming familiar with the use of new hardware, and then becoming familiar with how the new system works, the particulars of the fare system, the particulars of the app, and how the customers will engage with the onboard and wayside equipment. So really, really large project for the entire district. Operationally, there's a number of benefits for the new Pronto system. It's the first time we'll have a unified system for access to all of our sales channels. That means all of the product types that we sell will be through a single sales channel, which offers us a lot of efficiencies and ways to track our sales better. We'll have better ridership tracking eventually because of the tap on, tap off feature of the new Pronto system, which will give us more access to data. So we'll understand our riders a whole lot better. So a lot of the discussions we've been having today, we'll have more data to lean on in the future because of the way the system is set up, as well as new enhanced customer relationship software as well. So we'll be able to communicate with our customers better. For riders, there's also a number of benefits. So one of the main features of the Pronto system is the best fare pricing and fare capping. What this means is customers will never pay more than the rate of a daily fare throughout the day or a daily pass throughout the day and never pay more than a monthly pass throughout the month. So fare capping is a new system that should add a lot of value for our riders. Free transfers throughout the region for riders. For this launch period, we're offering free Pronto cards to all riders. And in September, MTS and NCTD are joining and offering free rides on Breeze, Sprinter, and Flex, as well as the MTS buses and trolleys. Here's a little bit more information about how the fare capping works. So it's a pay-as-you-go system, which means when you ride in a day, you'll never pay more than the daily cap, no matter how much you ride. And if you ride all month, you'll never pay more than the monthly cap. And on this slide, you see the different fares for the different types of rides and the respective caps. As I noted, free fares in September on Breeze, Sprinter, and Lyft, Flex. And the goal of the free fares was really twofold. One, to get our customers and riders familiar with how to use the new system, and to get our operators in attendance used to accepting the new system. So we want to drive adoption, we want to drive awareness, and so we joined with MTS in making the fares free for September. We are asking that customers do use the Pronto card or app when they ride to get the free fare, and the goal of that is that they become familiar with the system and become familiar with using it. So key to the free fares is for folks to use the Pronto system. How to get a Pronto card. So these purple Pronto cards have become really in demand in the region. MTS has been very active in handing them out, and so has NCTD. Where we've had a series of special events, I'll talk about those in a moment, where you can get a Pronto card, and there is a schedule of the special events at the NCTD website for when those are. The NCTD customer service centers have the Pronto cards to hand out. The ticket machines are now active on all the platforms, so you can get a card through one of the ticket machines, and you can stop by one of the regional retail outlets to pick up a Pronto card. That includes the area of Vons and Albertsons that have the Pronto cards. The Pronto app is now available for download. So the app acts as a virtual card. So you can open the app and you don't need to have the physical card to ride. You could load value, you can buy passes. You can manage multiple physical cards for family members. So if your family has 3 Pronto cards, you can manage and add value to all those cards through the single app. And you can plan trips on the app. So it's a good feature to allow you to manage your transit dollar through the app. It's now available on the Apple Store and through Google Play. Turns out there's a lot of different apps called Pronto on those stores. So you should search Pronto-San Diego and you'll find the Pronto app, and you can download it and set up the account, and you'll be ready to ride on with the app. I mentioned earlier the retail network. So at launch, there were 150 retail locations that are a part of this network. Riders can load card value and get a card at the retail locations. On the ridepronto.com/get-a-card website, there's a full list of the participating retail network along with an interactive map. So you can search your area and see what retail networks are offering the Pronto card. As I mentioned earlier, area Vons and Albertsons are participating in the retail network. And so at the service desks in those stores, you can get and load your Pronto card. I mentioned earlier that one of the main areas of work for us in the last several weeks has been training and operational awareness. So we've done a number of things to train the bus operators and train crews how to use the new system and how it works. That's included customer service guides, operator guides, along with what we call a take one, which is the piece of literature that the customer can grab when they board a bus or train, and on vehicle signage. So a lot of effort around building awareness, both among our customers and among the bus and train crews. In terms of rider awareness, a big focus throughout the last several months for NCTD has been reaching our customers where they are. That means reaching them within the system. So on our stations and platforms, on the vehicles themselves, and making sure we're handing out the information to the folks within the system. We've been encouraging them to sign up for their account online or to download the mobile app. We've been handing out cards. This has included ride-alongs where we're actually going on the vehicles and walking up and down the vehicle and handing out the cards and really interacting with customers and trying to build awareness around the new program. We've also done quite a bit of outreach to community organizations and businesses within our service area. And the goal there is to build awareness among those groups so they can then share the information with the folks they serve. This slide just summarizes some of the activities we've done over the past 6 or 8 weeks to build awareness around the Pronto and its launch. As you can see, there's been a lot of activity both within NCTD and at MTS to build awareness around it. Hopefully, Supervisor Desmond, you noticed on the launch day, they lit the county administration building purple to build awareness for Pronto. So, a lot of effort to build awareness in the region around Pronto. At NCTD, we've done more than 30 events and ride-alongs. We've had outreach to more than 60 groups, and this number in terms of card distributed is actually over 12,000 now. So we've been actively handing out cards and have been making a lot of progress in terms of building awareness for Pronto. That'll continue through the month of September. There's a lot of work left to do in terms of the Pronto launch, in terms of getting our customers familiar and getting our folks internally here familiar. So the launch work continues, and so there's more events scheduled throughout the month. We'll be continuing to hand out cards and become to normal operations with the Pronto. And I will pause there for questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Board Member Jenkins.
I have one question. Our materials that we put out, are they in multiple languages?
Yes, we've done both Spanish and English versions of our materials, and the Pronto ticket machines as well have multiple languages beyond Spanish and English within them.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Edson.
Yes, riders who still have Compass cards, what do we do about them? Or what are they able to transfer their balances or anything like that?
They can through the Pronto Service Center. So at ridepronto.com, you can find the phone number for the Pronto Customer Service Center, and they can assist those customers in transferring that value.
Thank you.
Board Member Gasterlin.
I've lived in New York City, Washington, and Chicago, and really welcome this Pronto card because it'll kind of normalize the way that people in the San Diego region can use this. How long do balances last? Do they time out after a year? If a visitor buys a card and loads it with $20, can they come back 5 years later and it's still active? How will that work?
It's stored value, so it's there for them to use as long as they have the account. And one of the upgrades from Compass to Pronto is that previously in the Compass program, the value was card specific. So if you lost that card, you lost that value. With Pronto, it's account specific. So the value actually sits in the account. So if you lose the card, you just deactivate the card, register a new card and you can transfer the value.
Okay, great. Well, my Compass card prompted me, let's see, I'll put it up here, to install Pronto. So I've been installing that during your presentation.
Great.
Thank you. Board Member Jenkins, did you have another question?
I have one more question. You said there's about 12,000 Pronto cards distributed. How many Compass cards do we have out?
I don't know the answer to that. And
Okay, maybe Matt can get back to us.
I don't know if we can, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And it's been in circulation 7 years, I believe. So I imagine the card 15 years, sorry, 15 years. So predates me by a lot. So I don't know the card count, but I'm sure it's a lot.
Okay.
And 12,000 is actually a pretty good hurdle for us based on our ridership. It's a large number. We've been handing them out fast and furious, and there's been a lot of interest in getting the cards.
Good, thank you.
Board Member Desmond.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Chris. Hey, I got my Pronto card here. Got my mug shot on it. Does the is the Oceanside Transit Center, is that I guess the people that work there, is that a Pronto station or a Pronto center where people can put money on it and on the card, and then also maybe do that transfer from the Coaster card to the Pronto card?
So yes, on the first question, you can definitely get a Pronto card at the Oceanside Transit Center. You can also, you have the photo card. So if you're a senior, disabled, or Medicare customer, you can also get your SDM card, your discounted reduced fare card at OTC. But the transfer of value, you actually have to call the Pronto Customer Service Center to do that transfer. That's being centralized through MTS. So you have to actually call to do that transfer.
So the photo card gives me away as an old guy? All right.
Just the card does, just the card.
Yeah, the card does, yes. I would have pegged you as an app guy, Jim, so I'm a little disappointed to see that you have a card, but what the heck. No other raised hands. Yes, I hope this program is successful. I think that the value storage is an important part of that. Circulate San Diego was a big advocate for upgrading the system to include that. The capping of fares is all very important. So let's hope that this technology is embraced and that we derive a great deal of data from it that will help us to improve our service and integrate our systems throughout the region. So thank you, Chief Orlando, for the presentation. And when we keep up the good work, we're going to keep, Matt's going to keep cracking that whip. So your days as an elected official are over. You got to be a hardworking civil servant there. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Chair Krantz.
All right, no vote required. Do we have any telephonic comments for this or any item on the agenda? Anthony?
Say that again, sir.
Do we have any telephonic comments for this or any of the other agenda items? I haven't asked. This is the first time I've asked you that question. I'm sure you would have let me know if there were telephonic comments.
I would have let you know, sir. And no, sir, we do not have any telephonic comments.
Okay. Very good. So that moves us to the executive director's report. Mr. Tucker, do you have anything to report?
Sorry, sir. We do have to hear consent items 2 and 6.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Yeah, that's what happens when you read from a script. So let us go to item number 2. And Board Member Contreras, do you need a presentation on this or?
No, you know what? I don't need a presentation. I just had a few questions regarding agenda item number 2 and some comments. First of all, I mean, it's looking really positive, the fact that we are increasing ridership on some of these modes. You know, we're increasing it, above 400%. So that's really good. I had a question regarding the Breeze performance. It looks like we're still having some challenges with major mechanical failures. So I'm curious, I know that we were going to get new buses, but what's our average fleet age at this point?
So this is Damon Blythe again. The average fleet age right now is about 7 years. We've got 30 CNG buses that are being delivered right now. We've got about 10 of them on site and the other 20 are still remaining. The first of those will go into service in roughly 30 days or so. Once the 30 of those are in, our average fleet age should be down around, I don't have an exact number, but it's around 5 years. And then we'll have 6 electric buses coming online in like December, January. So that'll reduce our fleet age a little bit more. And then the last 8 oldest buses will be replaced next year with the hydrogen fuel cell buses.
And thank you for that information. So are these major mechanical failures, are these predominantly coming from our older buses, or are we noticing that we're also having major mechanical failures with some of our newer buses?
Predominantly the older buses. You know, as we start to replace them, that number should increase. One other thing that I need to mention too is the New Flyer technical services and materials management agreement that MV is executing. That will bring dedicated New Flyer resources on site. New Flyer is the manufacturer of all of our heavy duty buses. So that'll bring 2 training positions and 1 project manager. And those positions are, the whole point of that program is to increase the mean distance between failure on our Breeze fleet. So we expect that we're gonna see a huge improvement once we get that program launched. That's expected to start in January.
Okay, so some good news. I was hoping to see a little bit less on the failures there, but it looks like we have a plan to address that. And then I just had a question regarding the Sprinter, because it looks like out of all of the modes of transportation, they're all going up, but the Sprinter seems to have plateaued a little bit, and I don't know why. So is there some information that you all have to help me understand kind of where we're at with our Sprinter?
Yes, ma'am. So from a ridership point of view, the Sprinter is like a perfect blend between all of our modes. And if you were to compare the Sprinter, for example, to the Coaster had a precipitous decline during the COVID-19 impacts, a major impact period. The Sprinter and the bus system were relatively in alignment. What the key to be focusing on is the future months now that school has reopened, because if you remember, the Sprinter ridership was heavily impacted by schools. And so now with schools reopening, we'll start looking at the metrics. Obviously, we know there's going to be a ridership bump, but watching that bump and what that does to the overall ridership will be the next metric. So we're planning to come back on a more frequent basis with updates, but take a look at those future reports once we get caught up to the report for September, October. And really the end of October will give you the first real good look at what's the impact of ridership now that school has reopened.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. And COVID hasn't gone away yet. We've had different ways to mitigate it to some extent. So I am really happy to see these numbers continuing to rise by the percentage that they are. With that, I move to accept and receive this report.
Thank you. Mayor Sanchez?
I'll second that motion.
All right. Did you have a comment as well?
No, just gonna make the motion.
All right.
On the motion of Board Member Karina Contreras, seconded by Board Member Esther Sanchez to approve consent item number 2. Board Member Bapato, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Gasserland?
Aye.
Board Chair Krantz?
Yes.
Board Member McNamara?
Aye.
Board Member Sanchez?
Sanchez, aye.
Board Member Desmond?
Aye.
Board Member Jenkins?
Aye.
Board Vice Chair Edson?
Aye.
Board Member Contreras?
Aye.
Motion passes with all board members present voting yes.
Okay, thank you. And consent item number 6. I believe that was pulled by Vice Chair Edson.
Yes, I pulled item 6 from consent in order to make a disclosure. As with agenda item 22, on September 14th, I received an email communication from NCTD board member Dan Quirk addressed to the entire board referencing this agenda item. I've not read the email and it's not impacted my ability to make a fair and impartial decision on the item. Therefore, I move approval of item 6.
Okay, board member Contreras.
I too would like to disclose that I received the same email that all the board members received from board member Quirk regarding agenda item number 6. I have not read it and don't intend to read it, and it has not, it does not block me from having a fair and impartial decision-making on this item. Thank you. And I also second.
Thank you. Mayor Sanchez. You're muted.
Sorry, thank you. I actually didn't catch that email, so I've not been influenced by it. And therefore I plan on voting yes.
Thank you. Board member Bhat Patel.
Same disclosures as everyone, and I will still be able to have a fair and impartial decision. Thanks.
Thank you. Board member Jenkins.
I also received the email. I did not read it, so will be making an impartial decision.
Thank you. Board member Gasterlin.
Getting mixed up on my mice here. I received the email and I did read it. I'll regard it as an email between 2 council members who are first and alternate on this board.
Okay.
And I'm here today because that email was sent.
All right. Board member McNamara.
Same disclosure as everyone else, and I did not read the email.
Board member Desmond.
I got the email. I read it. I already forgot what was in it, and won't affect my vote.
Yes, I received it and read it, and it is not going to affect my vote either. So Anthony, we can vote.
On the motion of Board Vice Chair Joel Edson, seconded by Board Member Cornelia Contreras, to approve consent item 6. Board Member Bhat Patel, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Gasterland?
Aye.
Board Chair Krantz?
Yes.
Board Member McNamara?
Aye.
Board Member Sanchez?
Sanchez, aye.
Board Member Desmond?
Aye.
Board Member Jenkins?
Aye.
Board Vice Chair Edson?
Aye.
Board Member Contreras?
Aye.
Motion passes with all board members present voting yes.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we are now on to the executive director's report. Mr. Tucker, do you have anything to report?
I would just remind the board members that my executive director's report is included in the board packet. The second comment I'll just make is hopefully every board takes the opportunity to review the email that we sent out regarding Metrolink and the railroad shutdown. I was a little bit tardy coming to this meeting. We were getting a briefing on that. It's important that everyone reads that email. Service will be shut down potentially for up to 2 weeks, depending upon the timeline that it will take for them to make repairs. I sent out an image to both the chair and vice chair, and I'll make it available to the rest of the board showing kind of the cracking that has occurred on the upper track area for Metrolink. It's no impact to coastal operations between San Diego and Oceanside, but it points to kind of the importance of our infrastructure, maintaining our infrastructure, addressing some of the impacts of climate change. It's just further evidence that we need to make those investments now, and that we need to be diligent to ensure that our transportation system functions in a way that supports the quality of life needs and economic goals that we have as a region. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Board member Desmond.
Sorry, that's an old hand.
Oh, that's an old hand. Okay. I see two new hands, maybe. Board Member Gasserlin.
I have my laptop and my iMac in front of each other and my mice are conflicting. Matt, I have to say, I've got this Pronto thing going and you guys have done a fantastic job with this. If you get into it, September is free. All you need is your barcode. And if you click on Trip Planner, it gives you all the buses that are coming soon that are anywhere near you. I'm so excited about this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Wow. We should have recorded that as a commercial.
I think we did.
Vice Chair Edson.
Yes, I would normally give a LoSAN report, but I think that everyone knows what's going on right now with LoSAN. Obviously they are also impacted by what's going on with Metrolink and happening. So you've heard it already. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And are there any board member reports or any other comments that anyone would like to make? Seeing no hands. Anthony, do we have any remaining public comments?
We do not, sir.
All right, our next scheduled meetings are an executive committee meeting on October 7th at 3 p.m. and our regular board meeting of October 21st, 2021. And today's meeting, I would like to adjourn in honor of a member of the NCTD family. Tremendous loss with the passing of Brian Burkett. It was tragic, and I would like to commend NCTD staff for the work that you did to put together a celebration of Brian's life, and in honor of all of the contributions that he made to NCTD during his service to the agency, I would like to adjourn this meeting in his honor.